All right, guys, welcome. Come on in. So thank you very much for joining us. This is now 2 days after the shareholder meeting, and we're seeing the stock rise. We're seeing generally well accepted, all the big news that came out. So let's review that shareholder meeting again. We're going to be talking about Elon's confirming that he's staying, his on stage saying that he'd be willing to do advertising. There's a lot of news about the CyberTruck coming, plus some features that he brought up. And then, of course, Alexandra's 80% gross margin. So I brought in board, Sat joining us. He is fresh back from the shareholder meeting. And so he can give us his on-the-ground response and what he thinks is happening. Welcome, Sat. Thank you for joining me in early morning.
Hi, Herbert. Thank you for having me.
Good. Thank you so much for that. Let's get going. So first of all, this is what happened to the stock yesterday. Right after the shareholder meeting, it shot up by 4.4% that day. What do you think, Sat? What made it go up? Is it primarily him confirming CEO? Is it advertising? Is it anything else?
Yeah, one thing before I go, I just had to thank you and Xander for giving a shout out, and thanks to William for my +1. So I was able to go to shareholder meeting because of you guys. You guys rock. Tesla community is awesome. Price going up is a small surprise, but typically because it goes down, oftentimes it goes down. But there's a couple of points that people like to hear. The advertisement was probably a big one. I was never in question that he wasn't going to be a CEO, but I think that reaffirmation that he's going to be there and be dedicated, and he's going to be now that there's someone that's going to take over at Twitter. So I think that gave more of that. But I think the enthusiasm came from him laying out the positive future that he sees and people being able to relate to that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go and play the clip of him saying that he's going to stay, and we'll get more feedback from you.
Better place for my son to live in.
Thank you. It's kind of you say.
Once Cybertruck is fully ramped in Austin, what is the target production? And also, there's some rumors that you're thinking about stepping down as CEO. Please say it ain't so.
It ain't so. Yeah. So I think Tesla's going to play an important role in AI and AGI, and I think I need to oversee that to make sure it's good. So, because that's a thorny problem if there ever was one. I think generally people do not, or very few people, even in the AI community, do not appreciate just how much capability Tesla has in AI. It's by far the most advanced real-world AI. There's no one even close. Reality has the most degrees of freedom. So I got to make sure that's good.
Wow. Okay. So not only did he confirm that he's going to stay, but I love it when he said that he's going to have to, oversee AI and AGI. So two things for me was that one, he said that he needs to stay at Tesla and that Tesla is going to do AI and AGI. So I had wondered whether or not he was going to do some of that with Truth GPT. He's going to go there, but actually staying at Tesla. And this is going to be a long term to do this. So that's what I got excited about too.
Yeah, I think it's great. The AI part was really interesting. Part of that comment is because Tesla's actually make life where you have the hardware and the software and it's in real time. That's the part that I think people miss. It's like, oh, it's a car. And they're kind of like, say, oh, it's easy to be in the lane or whatever. And they don't actually see that that's happening in real time and that's applicable to what they're going to do with the bot, et cetera. So I think a lot of stuff that people are kind of missing, even though we kind of know about it, but he's really putting it out in front by making those statements.
Yeah. So big deal. He's staying. I'm going to go ahead and play the rest of this because he's talking about the Cybertruck. Let's go there. I know that that's one of the big, catalysts that's coming up this year. So let's watch this.
Cybertruck fully ramps.
Oh,
here in
yeah.
Austin. Target production.
So, as I said, we'll start production later this year. We'll start handing over cars later this year. There will be an S-curve of production, so it'll be slow at first, and then ramping up. And I guess we'll see what the demand is like. So, I think we're likely to do probably 250,000 a year, I think, maybe more. Again, very much dependent on what the demand is like, and it's we don't just need to ramp up production, but we also need to improve the production cost efficiency, which is going to be also a very, very hard thing. So, but I'd say it's 250,000 a year is a reasonable guess, and it might be 500,000. I don't know, but we'll make as many as people want and can afford, but then, like I said, it's going to be hard to make the cost affordable because it is a new car, new manufacturing method. So, in the grand scheme of things, relative to the production rate of all the other cars we make, it will be small, but still very cool. Yeah.
So what'd you think, Sat?
Yeah, I think he's being modest about it. I really think he's being modest about it, and that's a good place to start. Have a target. You always have to have a target somewhere, but I think he's really being modest about it. And even though he's saying it's going to be the smaller one out of all the other ones in terms of production, it's so iconic already. Like, I knew it was going to be something bigger because it was in video games before I ever reached production. So that says something about the design of the vehicle. It's so riveting and revolutionary, and it pushes the envelope design should be about. And having it real life now, I think it's going to change a lot of it, and that stands out and builds a brand in that sense too. So seeing that in real life, even though it's going to be quote unquote the smallest one out of all of them, which is still a lot, I still think it's going to be a huge impact when they actually see it in roads.
Okay. So the other things he did say afterwards was he said that a couple things. One is the CyberTruck option packages and third-party add-ons will be awesome, and he also confirmed that it will not have door handles, and that it will, or it's removable, as well as the side mirrors, right? So let's take a look at the actual CyberTruck walk around by John of Dr. Know-It-All.
Inside, but you can definitely see the B-pillar camera there in a square instead of an oval, which is really cool. And of course, the gigantic windshield wiper. I guess they never figured out a better way to do that. And of course, the side view mirrors, but they're kind of a cool hexagonal shape. The really big thing, if you come over here, is look how stubby the nose of this thing is. It used to be much, much longer, and so the front wheels are basically right up against the front bumper here now. So they really, really shrunk the front end of the vehicle.
What do you think, Sat, about the what you heard there about the shrinking the front and so forth?
Yeah, I didn't realize how much shorter that was because I had looked at some of the changes, like the plug where it was. I got confused on where it was. There was actually a guy team there, very discreetly, and you see some of the pictures, like they've improved that charging section. They just had it at the side of the panel. They got rid of it. It's actually part of the wall of that rear left panel. The front side shrinking, I think it looks good. You don't necessarily need a lot of space in order to have the crumple zone and the safety of the crumple zone to work. And so I think they have to make it more aerodynamic or fit that side there. And the other part is that that wiper that they have, it's also really important that they get that it doesn't affect the way you think it does. Because I thought it affects aerodynamics, and because it's flush on that side, it doesn't affect aerodynamics. So they made those choices because, I mean, how could you hide the windshield wiper? You can't hide it anywhere. So I think they've made choices. They've gone through a lot, and people may not like certain parts, but the improvements are made based on a lot of reiterations.
So, Sat, you've been to every single shareholder meeting And then before you guys went in, you got to take a look at the semi, you got to see the Cybertruck. Just give me a sense of what was your experience when you were finally there. Like you said, you got your ticket, you're so excited. And what was the atmosphere like? Who did you meet? And just how does it compare to the previous shareholder meetings?
Yeah, I made every single one except with exception of last year when they started doing the lottery. That's why I'm like so grateful for the community to this time and get to know people or see the people in real life that you see online. And there's pretty much everyone you could think of that that's really active in the community. But this kind of feel is more common now. That it wasn't this way in the early days. It was there's there were times when it was very gloomy. It wasn't very enthusiasm. So this build up coming up that way is amazing. You see something completely different now, and people actually being able to see and meet people for the first time that they kind of know over years, in fact, over the internet. So I think the feel was very different, and you see that energy just start to like flow into everything that you and the questions that you see. The
Hmm.
quality of the questions was probably the best I've ever seen. People who are dedicated and they know and the company very well, and they ask very insightful questions. So that really changes the whole trajectory of it, because we used to have a lot of questions that kind of, if you would have known, and or some superficial kind of questions. So this was really honed in on a lot of the stuff that we wanted to know, and I think that really helped the meeting become even bigger, and hence the reflection on the stock.
I'm surprised that you said that the energy is so high because we had a tough year. It was very depressing with the stock falling, and people were less excited about Tesla, but yet the community comes there. There was definitely excitement. I've heard from people saying that they found this shareholder meeting to be more fun, more exciting, like you said, compared to even the Giga Texas Austin grand opening, which at that time we were at the peak of just euphoria with the stock so high, about to launch new factories, opening them, and then just seeing the progress. But now, why do you think? Why do you think the community was able to be so resilient and still be very positive?
With long-term people, and I've met other long-term people there, long-term investors, and it was a really amazing experience because of it. We were talking about how we've been through the ups and downs, and some of the newer people aren't used to the down. And believe it or not, it's actually not that
That's a good
bad
point.
comparatively. It's more volatile compared to other companies or other stocks or whatnot in the market, and it fluctuates more. But we had times when it fluctuates 60% in less than 5 days, not over a span of 5 months. So I think people lose perspective of where it's gone, and then now it's like, well, earnings call that seems so dismal. Like, and then people are like kind of saying, "Oh, it's bad, and this is gonna be gloomy." And then now you come to this shareholder meeting, and it's like complete opposite. So I went into the investor day not really knowing exactly what they're gonna say, and came out really enthusiastic. And then the
Yeah.
reception of publicly was like very negative. And I think the way that people feel about this event and how they felt afterwards is how I felt about the investor day. So I was shocked when they went through all the explanation in investor day, and then the reaction was, "Oh, we don't know how you're gonna get there." So I feel like this culmination of the shareholder meeting and him for it and making it in like a 5 minute version of it, I think that really reiterated it and then highlighting the main points of the safety and exactly the details of it. I think it was simplified enough for everyone
Mhm.
to understand and to be able to relate to it. And I think that was the biggest part that really made the difference.
Yeah. So I love what you said, that you're right. The people who actually went to the shareholder meeting are the people who are long term, who are very much supporters. And so it really is, people like meeting each other. And then I think it's also people who are very familiar and aware that Tesla's been hitting every single milestone, still growing, lots of exciting things. Um, Overall, when you saw the shareholder meeting, you saw what they announced and the questions and answers to it. What was your big takeaway? What was the things that you were most excited about? I don't think I asked you that at the beginning.
I think the overall impression that I have is that they're actually a step ahead of all of us because they're the inside people, but we don't have a step ahead of us. and even the people who are really dedicated to it, but they're a step ahead of us in many ways. They just can't announce all of it, and they're still working on a lot of stuff. So even the question about the cobalt, situation, well, a lot of it they shifted the chemistry to iron-based and nickel battery chemistry, and yet questionnaire like that question towards the cell phone manufacturers when they use pretty much most of it, like they use a vast majority of it too. Like it's like very very little comparatively ratio wise to in Tesla's. So Tesla has this kind of unfair microscope on other types of industries use it a lot more. And so him saying, okay, we'll try seeing independent study and see what's there. He's also pushing the envelope there, and he's a visionary in that sense too, because that's not asked to other people in other industries, and yet he's asked for it, even though he's internally they were a step ahead. The lithium question about mining, well, is more about refinery because they know where the and then this is the thing. It's not like they don't know that they can't do it. It's just that they're going to go after the biggest pain points. They're not going to go after the ones that's like the easiest part, was like there's abundance of lithium everywhere. So why would you do the refining part? That's a major point. So understanding those points and inflection points where they're looking at which is the biggest impact that they have and where they can focus on that to help push their mission. And I think we get caught up in all the details and then we forget which one was the most important one. And it's never a shortage of things to do. This one is the most effective and what we need right now and the next future that we need for that process to go further and faster. So I think the same thing will happen at Giga Mexico. Like when things are being built there, they're going to prioritize certain things. We may not understand exactly why at that moment, but we'll get caught up on it when they make it clear on those choices.
Yeah, thank you. So, it was pretty magical, I think, the shareholder meeting because of the kind of the way that, of course, things went the way that Tesla board wanted it to go, right? JB Straubel, and then when this one, even though it was defeated, he just came out and said, Cobalt, you know what, we'll just go ahead and do it anyways, right? So I think that's a fantastic thing. So just walk back a little bit of the mood of the shareholders when they saw JB Straubel being, when he was just physically there and he waved. What was how far away were you sitting from Kimball and JB?
Probably like 10 seats away.
Yeah,
I was on the side.
did you?
So I saw him come in and it was electric. He's a superstar and rock star in our world because he was one of the founders and he's a CTO here without him. And he's solving a major aspect of the battery part. So, and he's coming back to Tesla. It's just like, welcome home. Like, he's a rock star. So I don't think he understands how much of an impact that he has and how much support and people love him for the work that he does. So to me, it was like almost like the way that the energy was, and it was multiple times that was happening. So yeah, definitely for the work he's done and the work he's gonna do, that's what more so I'm excited about what he's gonna bring and different angles and that he's gonna bring this time around.
So Sat, what of all the things that happened that day, what was the one that you thought was the most impactful or most surprising, or just the one you're most excited about?
He said two new products. That was my main one. That was pretty surprising.
Wait, why is that surprising? We're going to get there. We're going to get there because unless you have a different interpretation than I do, that those two new products were something they've already announced, but we'll get there. So, okay.
Yeah.
That's surprising that you're choosing that as your thing. That's so surprising. Anything else that the next one? What's the next one that you were excited about?
The Tesla energy for sure. Tesla energy part that he was talking about. Them getting help from PG&E for the approval. So I think that side is a lot of regulations that they have to work through as well. So the fact that they're partnering with utility companies and to push forward to get power walls and the mega packs, I think that's going to be a big part. So that's why there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff and they're working so hard. That's why even the guy who worked for the CyberTruck design team, they're working really hard and they're gonna make it happen. They're making not like it's a prototype. They're working really hard, and people don't understand that. Oh, the design looks simple, so everything must be easy. So it's like this is completely new. Even though they've simplified it, it's really hard what they're doing. And I think we kind of gloss over it, like, oh, Tesla will just do it. It's like really hard stuff that they're trying to do, and changing processes for design and the manufacturing. This is like really hard stuff. So those are the parts like I feel like more impressed whenever I hear and talk to them, that they bring back that part, like behind the scene part we take for granted. It's an enormous amount of work that they put in, and we only see the pyramid part of like that success part, and everything that underneath, like hard effort and sacrifices you have to make. But we only see the tip of it, and then we take for granted that part, that other parts that they're still working on. And it looks so simple, yet they're working so hard to make it look so simple and so easy. So I think that's the bigger takeaway that of what's happening because of the Tesla Energy stuff, the new products that they're going to bring, the changes in the battery chemistries, like kind of nobody announces it. They just slowly just change it as it comes. So like they do these things behind the scene, and because the Tesla community is really awesome, and they look at that stuff and ask those questions, we're able to bring that. That was my bigger takeaway, and what I really liked about the shareholder meeting.
I'm shocked because I think you're going to be the only person who's ever going to say that that was the second most important thing of that meeting. Most people would say that was advertising. I specifically said that it was the CEO, him saying that it wasn't just that he confirmed it as CEO, but that he said he's going to do AI and AGI in Tesla and that he's going to oversee it, which means it's going to take several years. This is a big, big deal. And I think that we can't, it's the biggest deal probably. And then the second thing, of course, was the Tesla bot demo. I did a full video with Dr. Scott Walter yesterday, and it really is very shocking and surprising. And then, of course, I think people thought advertising, and then they also, Alexandra's question about what is the peak auto gross margin once you get FSD and SaaS in there, and he's at 80%. So all of those things are very flashy, but you went right to this, PG&E answer that he did about the energy. So.
Well, that's why I think it's like everyone, it's easier to see those highlights. And then, yeah, of course, I think the bot is going to be amazing. And that's a great new video. But the thing is, like, that's the flashy part of the business. And that's not the part that makes things happen. Like, you can make a flashy product, but the behind the scene part line and you're getting the regulations worked out, that's the part that's really hard. And that's why I feel like Tesla doesn't get the credit for that. They're moving so much more than just these awesome products that they're going to make. So that's why I want to highlight that part. It's not like I'm not excited about those other parts, but I feel like everyone misses it because the bot, or the AI thing, or the gross margin. I'm like, no, you don't see all the rest of the part. And so I wanted to highlight that part. So, and especially being a long-term investor, like I've seen so much that's gone through, and it's still glossed over. Even today, like it's glossed over. So I want to highlight those stuff.
Yeah. In our previous conversations, you've made a real focus on the cost. The focus of Tesla being able to reduce costs is why they are even here in the first place. And other companies are struggling if they can't manage that. So it's about process. It's about getting the hard stuff done. So let's get to one of the flashier things. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So 1 second. That one thing that I wanted to comment on that is that so they right and have like crazy billions of dollars, 20 billion of cash, and it's just the most ideal thing you could have on any financials, right? And then the stock's like going straight down. Like in 5-6 years ago, they're all in the red, right? So that's this huge discrepancy that's going on. It's like the finance is the strongest ever, like you have on any major market cap company. So I find it really interesting that always like stock market does some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Right,
No, of course. Yeah. Talking to short-term focus folks, they'll say it's because of the PE ratio, because of the growth, and they're talking about the margins and so forth. But yeah, many of us long-term folks, we're looking at the company and the product and the processes and just continued progress. So that's great. So another flashy thing that, again, I wasn't a big, I was very much, I would very much like advertising, but I wasn't thinking that it was going to be the end all be all. So let's watch Meet Kevin asking the question.
Hey, Elon, meet Kevin here.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, thanks. So Tesla is the largest position in my ETF, ticker PP, and that's for pricing power.
Right.
And I'm curious, I really think that some of the features that you highlighted here, like the over-the-air airbag deployments of improving the features, the safety features, are great things that we could be advertising. I know you've heard this many times before. I know you have. But
Sorry, go ahead, yeah.
$525 off every car this year is half a Netflix's advertising budget. $1,000 is the entire Netflix advertising budget, and I see their ads everywhere. Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this. I just talked to Gordo, the Tesla bear, and he's still talking about 2016 New York Times pieces. These people are in the past, man.
That's like 7 years ago at this point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's actually, I talk to a lot of people, and they still think that like Teslas are like super expensive. And like, no, actually, the starting price for a Tesla is below the average auto price in the US. It's like, and that's a good thing. I mean, I think it's good that it's that way, you know? Like, our goal was always to make cars that are affordable to the general public.
I'm going to pause it there because I think we should talk about that. So, you know, great points, of course. Everybody wants advertising. This has been talked to death with all of us so much. But the point that he made there, just emphasize the first thing he answers is that people don't know that the cost of a Tesla is now the same as an average price of all cars. And I'm telling you that is their goal. That's their mission. And so, you know, they could have advertised 5 months ago, a year ago. It wouldn't have stopped the progress of Tesla to reduce the price to get it to average sales price, if not cheaper. They got to get to that point. So there's this kind of like some investors who came in thinking that we should keep 30% gross margin. In fact, let's get to 40%. Let's keep raising the price. And then if you can't raise the price, must be bad. Demand must be falling. There's some truth to that. I'm not saying that there wasn't demand falling. It's a macro environment. But they needed to bring the price down regardless. What's your reaction to that point?
Well, I think the reason why there's the second half of it too. Like maybe they don't know about the price cuts, but I think most people do. And because I have friends who don't care about Tesla, they don't follow Tesla. They know about the price because price is the number one thing you look at as a consumer. And I don't think people realize what the average selling price of a car is these days. It's gone up significantly. So they assume it's like 20K, and it's not 20K anymore. And so they assume that, because it's higher than what they thought of it pre-pandemic, they assume that it's going to be higher than that, therefore it must be expensive. But in reality, like Prius is like above 30K now. So if you want options and stuff, it's pretty close to a Model Y. So they don't realize that the price of the average selling car is actually really high, and it's actually the price cuts made it pretty much below. I think that's where the discrepancy is too. There's other side of the industry that they don't get updated on, but Tesla is, because they're always transparent about their pricing. So I think they get dinged for being transparent, and with the other car companies, they're not being transparent because they have a dealership, and the dealership is different in every region. So you can't have a uniformity in that way. So I think them being streamlined, they show the price every single time. It's same everywhere. So then each consumer gets the same price. So that's why they get dinged for being transparent. So I find that there's the second half of it that people are missing. They're not being educated about the pricing because they can't see the other half. So when you only see what's expensive, well, because you see it standalone, it's in comparison to what? Like money is about value, right? Like if you don't see it in comparison to what, you can't say it's expensive versus what's cheap. But the other industries, the rest of the industry is opaque. So I think it's very unfair in that sense that they don't know, therefore advertising can fix everything. We'll tell the other OEMs to be transparent every day. Like why do I have to go to every single dealer to know the price and have them being publicly, nationally advertise their prices every single day for every single dealership? Then nobody would say that, it's too expensive and nobody knows. So there's no obligation to it, and Tesla's doing something completely different. So like they do something completely different, they get penalized for it. Because in a world that's completely opaque, you're the only one that's being transparent. So I feel like there's a bias in that sense.
Yeah, and the rest of the video, we'll watch it right now. He does address that.
So So I hear you. I mean, I think, and it's indeed ironic that, you know, Twitter is like highly dependent on advertising. So, you know, here I am, it's like, you know, never used advertising really before, and now have a company that's highly dependent on advertising.
So even just that statement right there, did you get the sense, it sounds like it, that he knows advertising, but he just doesn't give it a lot of credence as a product person, as a technologist, as an engineer? He always thinks, make the best product. Make the best product, focus on cost reduction, make it so good. But then he realized that even they have the best product, if it's not affordable, it doesn't make any sense at all. You need to bring it affordable to everybody, but have the great product. That's his focus. So that's what I got from that statement there. It's like, you know, it's ironic. So it's not like it's not like he's a big proponent that advertising is going to work. He's willing to do it. There's a lot of benefits for safety, and just people don't understand it. But he himself just doesn't think it's going to be. It never felt like it was a big thing. What was your reaction to that statement?
Well, this is several things. I think the context is taken out of it, like separately again, because the advertisers, because there's way more demand than the supply, they couldn't produce it. That's still the case today in a lot of places. Like the production can't be like crazy high all of a sudden. It's a gradual process. So even though you're saying, oh, the people are saying supposedly we don't know exactly sure, but there's inventory, and then they're changing the prices and so forth. But the number one reason why he didn't advertise, and he was asked this many years ago and many years continually. There was a guy who waited for so long, 2 years or something, and he got so mad for the delays. And so he delivered the car right there and smashed the car. That's the reason why he doesn't advertise, because you don't want to. So what happens if you go advertise like the other OEMs and billions of dollars? Well, you have like several 100,000 more people order. Then now your order you're waiting on the 5 months, as opposed to 2 months or less, or 6 weeks, right? So, or even a month for that matter. And instead of having a pleasant experience out, and the more people that's like, if it's too much, then you're not going to be able to give it to them in timely fashion, and it's a bad experience. So there's a balance in that part. And then the part that people are focusing on, especially like, oh, it's a place that the Teslas aren't at yet. Well, the reason why they're not there yet is because of the people I've talked to. Like, they're the only ones in the town that have it. They don't see superchargers there. You don't see Tesla service stations there, like centers there. So like you don't see it there for the infrastructure.
Nice
So
point.
they don't see the cars there. That you don't see the cars, then you don't buy it, right? Because that's the biggest part influence of to see the product to do it. Like, they're not crazy. It's like me, like, well, I just ordered a Model 3 without ever seeing it. Then most people aren't going to do that. So you had to actually physically see it. Like, my friend had never like thought of Tesla until all her neighbors got it. So it's like, well, everyone else like, oh, you're gonna get a new car? Are you gonna get a Tesla? Like, that's a conversation that's brought to it. So you have to have that conversation, right? So I that's what. And then the advertising part, I think, is shifted towards social media, not the traditional part. I think originally when people were asking about the advertising, it was more like the traditional advertising where you go to the mainstream media and so forth. I hope that's not the case. I hope it's social, because he has Twitter. So I think the advertising definition has started to shift as well, and I hope they do something different because of it.
Couple really good points there, Sat. Thank you so much. You're right about people saying that the the Midwest and rural areas, how come they're not buying it? You should advertise to them. And what you just said, well, yeah, you need the infrastructure there, and then they'll grow more. And the second thing is, you reminded me that the first time he was asked about this in a Twitter space and others, his reaction was, I've got 130 million people following me on Tesla on Twitter, because you're right, it's switched to social media. And then, of course, he then says here that, well, he does get that, it's kind of like preaching to the choir. So let's go and watch the rest of this.
I guess I should say advertising is awesome and everyone should do it. but I think I hear your sort of larger point, which is that there are amazing features and functionality about Teslas that people just don't know about. So... And although there's obviously a lot of people that follow, like, say, the Tesla account and the my account, whatever, on Twitter, to some degree, it is preaching to the choir, and the choir is already convinced. So I think what you're saying does have some merit, and you know what? I believe in taking suggestions, so we'll try a little advertising and see how it goes. Okay. Okay. All right. I wasn't expecting that level of enthusiasm. But okay, it sounds like our shareholders, if I read between the lines, subtle as it is, are saying we should probably do some advertising. Okay, very well. All right.
Yeah. So of course,
So
it's great news, right? That he can advertise, doesn't cost a lot of money. It's fantastic. We want them to do this, but it's just the nuance of, like, as if they discovered it because of that.
I mean, you reiterated, you said it a lot on your channel, is that this is happening because of the price cut is happening. Like, it's happening after the price cut. I don't think it's the price cut. That's the thing. The price cut is there, and then you have the advertising. Then it's a happy merger there. I don't think it's going to happen when it's 65,000. I don't, like, no amount of advertising is going to make someone want to buy it more than when it's at 45. Like, it's just not going to be the same. So I think the price in the advertising will help, but also it's about, like, the point is also different. Like, people don't know, right? Then it's about educating. So I think that advertising is more about educating, not advertising. So to me, the advertising word is changing, because it's like, well, it's educating the people. So I don't want to see more commercials. It's just like 10-second commercials of the cars going through driving around. Like, it's going to be educating. So one of the things I was saying is also, like, doing pop-ups in those regions, pop-up stores or gallery or tents or whatever you call it, and borrow a certain section for a certain period of time, show the car and have people explain it, and then have them do test drives. That's the best way of doing education as well. So I think that should be part of, quote unquote, advertising. It's not just you see a 10-second thing and then people, it's like, well, you need to actually sit in the car and see it. So I think that should be part of the education process too. And the advertising that people are talking about, I think they need to do those kind of things where they do test drives and so forth, and have videos that are showing that slide stuff, that information. Like, even this is a completely different range. It's like 94% to 98%. Like, there's a huge difference. But everyone says it's 5-star. Like, so it looks like every car is the same. That's not the case. And that difference may be small, but there may be a difference between life and death. So a gas car is the same because there's a gigantic engine in front of you, and there's nothing in the Tesla. So even though they have these ratings, I say it's only 5% difference between the ICE cars and then Tesla. It's like, well, it's bigger than that. So I think the standards are built for gas, and that's why I think when Tesla comes in, it's like, oh, it's completely different, but you don't see that huge difference. So when you don't have that engine there, it makes a huge difference, because your comfort zone is double, so, or even more. So it's a difference, but that they can't see it exactly also. So some of those parts I feel like really necessary, and it's really hard. Like, I don't know every single feature of the smartphone. Like, you have to find it too. Like, you're not going to be able to highlight every single one either, because it's basically like computer on wheels.
Yeah, it's the right timing, right? So Apple advertises, and they're like one of the most revered brands in the world. So it's great. Tesla should and will and should. There's no ends, no around it. They should be advertising from now and onward. But you like what you said earlier, which is that, would you start advertising a year ago when you didn't have Giga Berlin and Giga Shanghai, and you're not able to produce more than 1 million vehicles? You're barely under that. But now that both of these factories are at scale and getting to 80%, that reduces your cost because you're at scale. And so the more you can produce cars, you reduce your costs. Now it makes sense to go ahead and advertise. And the cost of advertising is very small. So I'm not against advertising. I've been wanting them to do advertising. It's just the nuances of how people are asking for it and the things that they're saying is really different. So here's so if we just look at, this, which is, it's been well received. You saw the applause by the shareholders. And then it says here, the market supports Elon's decision to start advertising for Tesla for the first time. So we went up 2.5%. And for an advertising budget, that will be in the millions. And so just the rise in the shareholder will be enough to cover this for sure. There's a notion that new customers will come and advertising will have a positive impact. Elon replied back saying, we'll give this a shot, right? And then you could start seeing that the analysts really like this. And this is something that, as Gary Black, but even Wedbush, they're saying, will be a major boost as key pieces of the Tesla are undervalued. And so, like you said, it's perfect. They're going to start advertising. And so, yeah, I think the community was quite happy about all this. Okay. Well, did you clap? Were you one of those people that was very excited that he did this?
I was kind of agnostic at that point because I don't know. I was trying to digest what they meant because I don't think he's meaning to do traditional advertising. I think it's social media where you could track it, you could see it, and you could track it, and you could advertise to a certain region. The process of it, because I see a discrepancy in the definition. So great. It's great for the advertising, but it's still in a certain parameters that I see. So I wasn't necessarily gun ho that the advertising was the number one thing that people liked or whatever. It's just, that's not the thing that's gonna make Tesla like. I don't think that's the thing that's gonna skyrocket. Like it's gonna help push it forward, but I don't want to get into the thing. It's like, well, if you do traditional media, like go to those channels on TV and then advertise. Well, if you only spend a few $1 million on it, there's other OEMs that are spending billions. You're still not going to be prioritized. So, there's the whole narrative of advertising is that if you advertise, the main media will be nicer to you, right? Because you're paying the bill. Well, if you're paying a tiny portion of their revenue, they're still not going to prioritize you. So once you do that and it's like, well, it's not working, then you're going to pay even more to get to get that narrative fixed or whatever you call it. That was the original narrative of the advertising for the sales. That wasn't the narrative. It was just the narrative is so negative, so we're going to advertise to fix it too, right? And then that's like shifted away. It's like there's so many things that shifted with the relation to the advertising. Now the definition is changing. It's not doing traditional one. So maybe we should do social media and an education version of it, right? So like I've always been about the education budgeting for that, yes, because he just makes it on YouTube and then posts it for 140 million, 130 million followers. So that's cheaper because you don't have an ongoing cost to it. So I don't want to get into the same of the traditional system and then get into that rat race of like, well, the other one's spending more, so we have to spend more. And the other thing is, like, if you stop advertising and let's say it goes down, right? The deliveries or the orders go down in growth as opposed to growing, like maybe the advertising increases by 15% or whatever. And then if you stop doing it and it goes down to 10%, they're gonna be like, oh, it's going down, it's negative now. Then now you have to keep doing even more to make sure that it's gonna be consistently going up, right? So you start doing that and get into that rat race, then it's like, oh, you have to spend even more because they want to see, Wall Street like to see the numbers go up. But advertising is something everyone knows, right? That's the traditional stuff that's there. All the major companies do it. So they understand that language. And Tesla has never played by that rule. So when they're getting into it, it's like the same way. And I think most people would agree they're not going to do just the traditional advertising. But there's so many narratives and things that's changed. And it's like, well, and I don't think it's quite the same way. Like they would take it out of context. Advertising is great. No, I feel like that's why I put it into context of what's happening in the last few years. So I think it's not that simple, but that's why it's on like exactly how they're going to execute was more of my issue than rather than like, I know if advertising come at a certain point.
Okay. I mean, for me, if you're going to advertise, you don't just limit it to one area. You're going to do the whole thing, which includes, everything from TV, magazines to social media. And it's like, there's different reasons why you do different mediums, but there's a whole package that you should be considering about. And then the second point, when I think of it, is that, the reason why the shareholders clapped and I clapped as well is because we have fought FUD for, you know this, but that's basically our life for the last 3 years, 10 years, all its life. It's been like that. So there's so much misinformation, plus the opposite, which is active disinformation by everybody, mainstream media, all the enemies that Tesla's doing. So Tesla needs to step up and just say, look, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Clear the air, show the reality, and just give us some ammunition to spread out there. So I think it's important. This is going to happen. Okay, we got a few minutes here. Let's go to the next thing, which is the new products
on a day-to-day basis. So, and people always want to know what our next product is. But this is not the time to. We obviously need to have a proper dedicated product launch. I just want to emphasize that we are actually building a new product. We are actually designing a new product. We're not sitting on our hands here. There are 2 new products that I think you will be very excited about. And both the design of the products and the manufacturing techniques are head and shoulders above anything else that is present in industry. So, yeah, anyways. If I were to guess, I would say of these 2 new products, just these 2 new products alone, I would say we will probably make, obviously this is just Elon's guess, so don't sue me. But Elon's guess is that that will probably make in excess of 5 million units a year of these 2 models combined. So.
All right. What was your interpretation? I'm curious.
And I think that there's a psychological component to the stock market, right? So if there's no future products that's coming, it doesn't matter how profitable you are today. It's still not going to be the stock market isn't going to reflect positively to it. He's saying there's 2 new products that we expect at this point, and then now he said there's 2. So there's enthusiasm, there's going to be even more products in the near future, and then I think that's another catalyst for the stock to go up more, because you're going to have to account for something new that wasn't going to be there. So I think that excitement is what propels any company in their stock to have new future products coming. So yeah, I'm glad that advertising is going to happen. I think it's the right period, and it's going to be probably done in a creative way because it's Tesla. I'm not completely against it. It's just I don't think it's the biggest thing. I think it's the new products that's going to be the biggest thing. The bot that's going to be the biggest thing. The AI part. Many other products he basically deduced it into a small way, a concise way of people, so that people can understand. I think that's the thing, and that's why you see that silhouette. They're obviously working on it. What the second one is going to be, I'm still thinking about it. I think it's going to be another type on that, or it's going to be completely different. So, but then they haven't really released 2 cars on the same platform at the same time. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but I feel like whatever the new product is going to be, the second one, definitely is going to be a surprise. So I feel like Asm is baked into why people were so positive also about the shareholder meeting.
Yeah, so it's great that we're wrapping this up a little bit, but you're right. I want them to advertise. It's going to be great. But what if they advertise instead that Tesla's an AI company, and they just really make that happen? It's going to, or they're already getting all the best engineers coming there, but that alone will re-rate the company and have a major boost to the stock price. Because once people understand this company is really an AI company, it's really a software company. First product happens to be cars. That's really good. The second one was what were the two products? So didn't they already announce that in Investors Day? They showed the two that's under covers. One is a compact car. One looked like a van. Are you thinking like
Yeah.
some people thinking that it's not those two, it's something else? I think it's just those two. But what did you interpret that to be?
I think most likely it is those two. I can't fathom being completely new. But in Investor Day, they didn't want to highlight anything about the new product. They want to highlight about the sustainability part of it. So I think that's why they didn't go over it. But that's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
Investor Day actually revealed, but they never said it. So I think you're right in that sense. The probability of being those two is like really high. So I think it's most likely going to be that one. But you never know. They could always have something else under their sleeve. So, but I feel like those are the two main ones, and I think those are the ones coming in the immediate future, next 2 or 3 years. So I think that's going to be a big part, the positive part of that whole part in the next few quarters. Definitely going to people want to know more, and when that unveil is going to be, because it's not going to be too far away.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Sad. I know that you came home from Austin very, very late last night, and you barely agreed to be able to come today. So thank you for that. I wanted to get your opinions about what happened. You've been to so many of these Investors Day, shareholder days, and so you've been there. You've shared stories with me of how you've stood up and asked questions. So this time you're just letting other people do it. And so your kind of perspective is a bit different. And you showed that today, and how you saw things a little bit different than most of us who are just, looking for the shiny things, which are very important. You did say you did look at that, but you look at it deeper. Thank you so much, Sat. And join us again next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Herbert.